Hi-Lux is an optics company best known for making leatherwood and reproduction vintage scopes. But at SHOT Show this year, they introduced the antithesis of vintage, a very modern variable power target scope, the PR5. Hey, Moondog here. Welcome back to Moondog Industries. Today I have a Hi-Lux PR5, and I want to thank Hi-Lux for sending this out to me for testing and evaluation, but I am not sponsored by Hi-Lux, and I am under no obligation to review this favorably. So what you're going to see is my unvarnished opinion, my first impressions. We're going to take it out of its box, see what you get, and take a deep dive into its features, and then take it out to the range and test out its optics. So let's get started. Alright, let's start with what you get, and rather than doing a tediously long unboxing, I'm just going to show you the contents of the box, so here you go. This is the Hi-Lux PR5 5-25 by 56 millimeter first focal plane scope. And I want to thank Hi-Lux for sending this out to me, and this thing truly is a monster of a scope. I got a chance to see it at the Hi-Lux booth earlier this year at SHOT Show, and that time I got to see it really didn't do it all its full justice in terms of how impressive it is in person. And I mean impressive in both weight, girth, mass, and length here. It is 16 inches long. It's got a 56 millimeter objective lens on here, and it is a 34 millimeter tube, and it is heavy at 40 ounces. That's 2.5 pounds of metal and glass. So this is probably the heaviest scope I've ever used, and certainly great if you are doing PRS, ELR, or really just any sort of bench rest shooting. Not so great for hunting, unless you want to carry around 40 ounces of scope into the high country, but more power to you if you can manage that. Still, it is an impressive looking scope, and Hi-Lux is a company well known for making modern vintage style scopes, so they do have a bit of experience in making scopes, though this is far from their usual vintage retro style scopes. Now, one thing that makes it even more unique as a modern scope is the fact that it is illuminated, but it uses digital controls. It has 11 levels of illumination. The lowest ones are for night vision, and it goes up, but as we'll see in the illumination footage a little bit, I didn't quite find this quite daylight bright, but that is it still illuminates quite a bit of the Christmas tree. It's powered by a single CR2032 coin battery there in that dial, the parallax dial here. You can open that up with a coin to replace the battery under the cap. The parallax focus, stiff but turns quite well, and more importantly, if you can notice here, it goes down to 10 yards, which is unusual for a long range scope, but great if you're doing if you're using this for an air gun or if you are shooting NRL 22. So the fact that it can go down to 10 yards is quite impressive. And the turrets, have a listen. Very audible. Pretty tactile too, tactile positive, with just a little bit of play between each of the clicks. It is a tenth of a MRAD per click. And it does have resettable turrets. It includes an Allen wrench, Allen key. You just unscrew that small screw at the top there, pop off your turrets, and you can reset them to 0. And they are push to lock type turrets. So once you have your 0 set down, just push it down, and that'll stay in place. This is the same case with a windage, which is great if you are a hunter, so you don't accidentally change your windage. But as you can hear, just as loud and equally tactile positive. And this again locks with a press. Now these rings, these are not standard. These don't come with the scope. These are Monstrum high recoil rings here, but this set, this box does come with a few more accessories, caps, and a lever. And let's feel that magnification ring turn smooth. You can hear just a little bit, but fairly faint, and it feels smooth, no grittiness, all the way from 5 to 25 in a 180-degree throw, and nice, very visible numbers and markings. And our ocular fast focus, smooth. And I love the fact that it has marking lines, so you can go back to your appropriate distance on the ocular focus. And overall, I have to say this scope looks quite well made. Nicely crafted, and the bell is threaded for the included sunshade. But of course, the proof is in the pudding. We'll take this out, look through the glass, and see how that works. And we'll also take some time and look at, it does have a zero stop on that top turret, and you can see it is quite massive. I'd say it rivals the Arkin in terms of just massiveness. So we'll take a look at the zero stop system that they have on this and how to set that. Alright, I was mentioning the zero stop, and I wanted to show you what that looks like real quick. Underneath the turret cap on your elevation, there is a spiral groove system, kind of similar to how Loophole does their zero stops on their Mark V, except that their groove system is actually in the turret internals, and a pin is underneath their cap, so kind of the reverse of that. On the inside of your turret, there is a black disc with a pin that slides in and out in that track there. And once you have zeroed out your reticle, you just slide this pin to the outermost part of that track, and then you align your zero on your cap, set it down, and that pin should fit right into the outer track. And at this particular zero stop design, the turret stops not at 0 but at 1 mil past 0. And I don't know, some folks might like that kind of design because it gives you a little bit more opportunity for adjustments. Let me know in the comments what you think. Alright, we are looking through the PR5 at the peak of Mount Davidson, approximately 1,300 yards away. We have the scope set at its lowest power of 5 because this is our best sense of the overall image quality, and you can compare the image inside of the scope to that outside of the scope to compare its image in terms of contrast, clarity, and color. Because as we increase the magnification, we are actually increasing the faults in the glass as well as losing light. So let's do just that. We're going to bring this scope up to 25 power. And as we do that, the reticle gets larger. It scales up because this is a first focal plane reticle. But the center fine lines do remain fine enough that we can make out details behind it. Note that as I changed the magnification, I didn't have to reposition my camera, which means we didn't lose any eye relief, nor did I have to refocus the scope. Now, there was a slight change in point of aim, a shift to the left, but that's due to the tripod that I have the scope mounted and not the scope itself. Now, we have lost brightness and contrast. That's to be expected with any high-power scope. But it is easily clear enough, sharp enough that we can make out that white object near the center reticle. That is about a 36-inch trail marker sign on top of the hill there. It's also on top of a pole peeking up above the bushes. That's a good proxy for what a steel target would look like at this distance. Alright, so let's take a look at this illumination in low light. We are in twilight right now, so I'm going to turn this on. And it remembers the last brightness setting you have it on. So this is about halfway, around 5, and there's like 10 modes. So let me just bring this all the way down to 1 by tapping on the low, and then you press it for a long press to turn it off. And then I'm just going to press 1, 2, 3. The first 2 are really for night vision. So this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is our maximum. Let's see how that looks like when we crank up the magnification to 25. There you go. Okay, we're at the gun range, and I've posted up some reference targets to look at 100 yards. And while I get things set up, now would be a great time for you to hit that like and subscribe button. Subscribing to this channel is absolutely free, it doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps me out because you're telling the algorithm that this is good content that other folks like you would like to watch. So thanks for doing that. Looking through the glass at the range, I can see a bit of distortion and softening around the outer edges, and a bit of chromatic aberration, but compared to the view outside of the glass that the camera is capturing, not bad. PR5 at target downrange at 100 yards, and its lowest power setting of 5 for our overall best image quality. And while we're here, let's just do our range of adjustment test. I'm gonna pop open these turrets and let's start with elevation here. And that is far down as it'll go. Now disregard that darkening of the outer image there. That's an artifact of the camera and the mount system. And that is as high as it'll go for elevation. Again, that darkening of the image is an artifact of the camera setup and not something you will see in the scope. So back to 0. Let's try the windage. That's as far as we'll go on the right, and that's as far as alright, do all of this stuff out. Now let's zoom up to 24 power, and as we do, just note we haven't lost any eye relief and no shift in focus nor point of aim, so that's pretty good. And we're pretty close to dead center on that target. Let me just make a little bit of a nudge here on the mount. Alright, so while we're here, let's just do our box test. Start with a full rotation on our elevation turret. Full rotation on our... The darkening you see is the camera's view going outside of the eye box as we adjust the turrets because the camera is in a fixed position. Unlike a human, we move our heads ever so slightly to keep our eye centered in the sweet spot of the eye box. Now I know the scope appears to have returned to 0 slightly off to the right, and that's because I screwed up. I actually started with the windage 1 click off from 0, so that's my bad. To prove that the scope can return to 0, let's do a stress test. Alright, this is what my friend Cyclops Joe euphemistically calls his nipple twister, but really we're just going to see how well this tracks and turns to 0 after turning these turrets hither and yon, helter skelter. Alright, so let's bring this back to 0 first on the windage, and darn tootin', it's right back to where it started, so it passed the nipple twister test. Alright, I've taken a still image of the video so that we're not dealing with heat shimmer or any other movement distractions. Let's take a look at that reference target on the top left. I can clearly make out 22 holes on the reactive sticker target, which isn't surprising, but I can also make out 2 additional bullet holes on paper below that sticker target. And to me, that's a practical benchmark for clarity and sharpness. For a more objective measurement, let's take a look at the US Air Force's optical resolution chart on the right, and I can make out both horizontal and vertical lines down to element 5 in group -1. And if I was being charitable with a naked eye view, I could make out element 6. Now, is the PR5 that mythical unicorn of a sub-$1,000 scope that is as good as a $3,000 Zeiss or $2,000 Leupold? No, it isn't. But what I've found is that the PR5 is as sharp, if not a tad sharper, than other scopes that I've tested in its class. It's not without its faults. Its eye box is unforgiving at high magnification, and the image isn't sharp from edge to edge. And the turret zero stop was a bit finicky to set up, and at least in my sample, inconsistent. But on the plus side, the scope performs and is built like a tank, and has features like that digital illumination control not found in any scope in its class.
but one feature we can all agree on. At 40 ounces, the PR5 is a heavyweight performer. And if that dad joke caused you to groan, that's nothing compared to the groans you'll hear from hunters trying to carry this up a hill. But for a bench rest shooter, 40 ounces of optic is actually a benefit when precision shooting. And if this scope is right for you, you can purchase it using the product link you'll find in my full written review at moondogindustries.com. You'll find a link to it in this video's description. And before this video ends, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell buttons. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, a like is always appreciated. Moondog, out. Hey, I'd like to know what you thought of this video. Leave me a comment or chat with me on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, MeWe, Instagram, or Locals. And if you want to see all of my videos, go to moondogindustries.com.